And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Woo Fantasy right here on RotoBaller.com. That is right, RotoBaller.com, your one-stop shop for all things fantasy. But of course, we've got you ready to win big in 2021 with the NFL Premium Pass. Go and sign up for that today, NFL, and that is RotoBaller.com/radio for 50% off on great items that you can get with rotoballer.com. That is exclusive rankings, exclusive articles, and one of the best Slack chats that you can find out there. That is exclusive content that you can get from some of the best experts in all of the fantasy industry. That is going to rotoballer.com/radio for 50% off. And then, of course, Woo Fantasy gets you an additional 10% off at checkout. Go sign up today and rotoball like a boss, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. Here we are getting ready 1 hour before kickoff, and we are getting things set and ready to go for this Week 10 slate. Of course, I am flying solo today. Co-host Nick Heffley is unable to join today, so we're going to do this thing solo for you, ladies and gentlemen, out there. So if you're following on the RotoBaller YouTube page, the Roto Superstore Twitter account, and of course the RotoBaller Twitter account as well, send those questions in. If you've got friends out there, anybody that's out there, go and let them know that we're answering those questions up until kickoff. So send those questions hot and heavy in. We'll be ready to answer those. And of course, like and share this video on the RotoBaller YouTube page, and we would greatly appreciate that. So let's kick things off. And let's be point blank honest. It continues to be a point of contention for a lot of us in the industry and a lot of fantasy managers out there. We are dealing with injuries galore yet again. It seems like this is just kind of becoming a increasingly frustrating thing on a weekly basis as we get ready, diving into Sunday action. I mean, over the course of the last couple of days, we've had news come down the pike. We've lost Alvin Kamara out for this week. We've lost Nick Chubb, who was unable to get a couple negative tests and be able to pass COVID protocol and be out there today. Obviously, that's a big boost for D'Ernest Johnson. Going to be probably the biggest chalk play in all of DFS in Week 10 this week. So I'm expecting to see a lot of D'Ernest Johnson. Tough matchup on the road against New England. I think a lot of people are getting a little bit excited about D'Ernest Johnson's value with Nick Chubb not in the lineup. Let's be point blank and frank about this situation. New England's going to do their best to stop that running game, and that defense is really no joke. So, a lot of people are really shooting the moon with D'Ernest Johnson heading into this matchup. And I think that's going to be a situation where we kind of really need to temper those expectations and, not expect that blowing the doors out 25-point fantasy performance that we saw from him just a few weeks back on the Thursday night game when he was the man in the rushing attack for the Browns. That's going to be something to monitor today. And then, of course, another chalk situation that we're looking at, Alvin Kamara being out today, Mark Ingram taking over the lead dog role for the Saints backfield in Tennessee, playing the Titans today. The Titans coming off, the last couple of games where they've really looked good on the defensive side of the football. It's something to monitor today, but they do have a couple of injuries that they're going to be dealing with themselves on the defensive side of the ball. Nose tackles out for today for the Titans, and they're also missing a couple of inside linebackers today. So that's going to be something to kind of monitor with Mark Ingram's value in this game as well. And, speaking of the Titans, of course, we did see that Julio Jones was put on the IR. Which pretty much makes this the A.J. Brown show moving forward. And that's going to be something to kind of keep our eyes on. Will that adversely affect A.J. Brown from a fantasy standpoint? That's something to kind of keep an eye on. Yes, he has been performing admirably the last few weeks. He's been a top 5 option at the position. He's getting all the workload. The targets have been there. The receptions have been there. He's been getting into the end zone, which is everything we want from our top tier wide receiver one. But now will we see a lot of that coverage kind of shade over towards A.J. Brown? Will it limit his opportunities? And that's going to be something to kind of monitor moving forward. Titans did call up Des Fitzpatrick from the practice squad for this game today, 4th-round rookie, which was weird. He didn't make the final roster out of training camp, so they've signed him to the practice squad. He's kind of been getting reps in throughout the season down there. I think he's an intriguing name in really, really deep rosters, especially in dynasty rosters. If you've kind of got an end of the bench type of a spot open that you can kind of pluck and sit a guy at the end of that bench and see how things pan out, I think Fitzpatrick's kind of an intriguing name. He's going to take over that Julio Jones role, possibly. I mean, he's a big, tall receiver. I think there's going to be some chances for Des Fitzpatrick to kind of show what he can do. I think it's going to be coming in bits and pieces, though, as he kind of works his way onto that rotation for the Titans moving forward. So, but outside of that, I mean, you look at it again, too, injury situation with the Cardinals. Not expecting DeAndre Hopkins to play. They're leaving it more of a 50-50 situation with Kyler Murray as things stand right now, but I'm not expecting to see Kyler Murray play again today, so we're going to see Colt McCoy yet again for those Cardinals today in that matchup. It's going to be the James Conner show. Repeat of Week 9 is what we're looking at for the Arizona Cardinals in that matchup today is what I'm expecting. So that kind of really catches us up to date. I know another one kind of keep an eye on as well. Damian Harris inactive for the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson is active. I know a lot of people are expecting a kind of a big boost for Ramondre Stevenson today, but let's be honest here. This is Bill Belichick. I would not be shocked to see this be a 3-way split or probably a heavy 2-way split for most of this game today between Ramondre Stevenson and Brandon Bolden, with a little bit of J.J. Taylor mixed in as well. So if everybody's kind of expecting to see Ramondre Stevenson get 20 to 25 touches in this game, I think we need to pump the brakes there because I'm not really expected to see that big of a workload for Stevenson in a Bill Belichick-led offense. So that's kind of touching the bases, getting us caught up, looking at some of the injuries that are going around the league. But the point of the Woo Fantasy Game Day Live show here on RotoBaller's YouTube page is, of course, the Woo Nation, getting to your guys' questions. Like I mentioned, get them in hot and heavy. We're here for the next little bit to get your lineup questions answered or anything having to do with fantasy or gambling, betting, anything. We've got you covered. Send them in to me. We're gonna see what we can do and get those wins here in Week 10. Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest. We're getting down to the latter stages, last quarter of the season in fantasy football. So some of you need to make some big leaps and get into playoff contention. Some of you are looking to lock down those top seeds in your leagues. We're here to do what we can and kind of help you acquire those goals is what we're looking at today. So starting things off, Pistol Pete want to say, what's up? Good morning. Good morning to you, Pistol. Appreciate that. Starting off the show the right way with a little nice greeting there. So jumping in to the questions here, we got Kales right off the top here wanting to know Pat Freiermuth or Dawson Knox today. A very good question to start off today's show because Pat Freiermuth, of course, has been the talk of fantasy over the course of the last few weeks. He's been performing admirably for those Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of been that secondary option in a passing game for those Steelers. But of course, we got the information late last night. Big Ben is not going to be playing today. And I think it's leading a lot of people kind of into a wrong kind of sense of false security when it comes to that, is that they're thinking, Mason Rudolph's in, abandon ship. I can't play any of my Steelers. I think that's kind of something I'm not really fully yet to sign on for. I think Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris are really not affected whatsoever. But I think it's going to affect a little bit for more Pat Freiermuth more than anything. So, and we've got Dawson Knox coming back, making his reappearance after missing the last two games for the Bills. I'm expecting to see Dawson Knox kind of get back to where he was prior to the injury. So for me, Kales, yeah, I've got Knox higher in my rankings for the week. So that's where I'm going to be leaning, even though we've got Freiermuth coming off of, a nice 2-game stretch. I like Dawson Knox a little bit more between those two options today. So let's go and get Dawson Knox into your lineup, Kales, and set it and forget it, because I think you're going to be good either way. But I do like Dawson Knox just a little bit better. Pete jumping back in here, wanting to know he needs some QB help. We're looking at the options of, Baker Mayfield, Mac Jones, Mike White, or Trevor Lawrence. Let's go and look at my handy dandy rankings that are up on RotoBaller.com for this week. You're digging at the bottom of the barrel, sir. I'm not envious of your position there. Looking at, I have Trevor Lawrence as your top rated option. I've got him QB 19. QB 20 is where I've got Mike White, followed by Mac Jones at QB 23, and Baker Mayfield rounding out your group as QB 24 this week. So based on rankings alone, I think we're going to go with Trevor Lawrence here. I'm not expecting a really kind of big performances out of any of these. I've got Mike White. He might be a sneaky option if they're playing from behind to Buffalo. There might be some kind of late game theatrics there for Mike White playing from behind, that garbage time scenario. That he might be an intriguing option. I've got them back to back with Trevor Lawrence. That's really kind of a coin toss situation there. But it's at the end of the day, I kind of went with the better player in terms of rankings there. So I've got Trevor Lawrence one spot ahead. I would not fault you at all for going Mike White in there in that scenario also. So that's what we're looking at there. And a good friend of the show here, Mr. Saban's burner popping in. Morning, Brandon. Morning to you, sir. Not that great of a morning. We got a dog stomping by the Georgia Bulldogs in Knoxville yesterday, but we saw that coming. Doesn't really have a question considering half of my team is out or hurt. Join the club, buddy. Hope I'm having a good one so far today. Not going to say anything, but I said it for you. I beat you to the punch. Tennessee took it on the chin last night. It was a great first quarter, but after that, it was a snooze fest and an embarrassing. And I said it earlier in the week once Tennessee put out that they're going to be wearing the black jerseys. I was like, oh, good Lord, no. You can't put on the special jerseys to get beat down by the number one team in the nation on your field in homecoming week. It's just not a good look. So, Pete popping back in again. We're overloaded with Pistol Pete questions to start the show off here. Freiermuth or the Lions tight end? I'm assuming you're saying Hawkinson. Obviously, I'm going to go Hawkinson there. Yeah, the matchup on the road in Pittsburgh is a little bit tough, but we've seen Hawkinson kind of get back to what he normally is over the course of the last few games, and that is a guy that's getting heavily targeted and catching a lot of passes. So this could be a situation where you see Hawkinson get back into the end zone finally in this game today as well. And that's going to be something I'm going to keep my eye on, because let's be honest, the Lions have no receivers to speak of. It's going through either DeAndre Swift or TJ Hawkinson. So yeah, I'm going to play Hawkinson there over Freiermuth for sure, Pete. So let's lock that one in. And then Kale's coming back in as well, wanting to know Antonio Gibson, Kenyon Drake, AJ Green needing the pick 2. Gosh, how the mighty have fallen with Antonio Gibson. He's at home facing, a top 5 run defense in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's not a good situation for him today. AJ Green back in the lineup for the Cardinals, but Colt McCoy is going to be the guy throwing the ball for the Cardinals today. It's close. Kenyon Drake's actually looked halfway decent since the switch and gotten John Gruden out of the head coaching spot for the Raiders. So I'm going to have Kenyon Drake into that lineup. Outside of that, it's between AJ Green and Antonio Gibson. And with the Cardinals looking at a home game today, for me, I like it. It's a tough matchup against the Carolina Panthers, but I like him to possibly get into the end zone a little bit more than Antonio Gibson. So I think that's where we're going to lean. You're looking at a low output for Antonio Gibson in that matchup. And let's be honest, he's not catching the passes either. So we're not getting that avenue to really kind of buoy his potential either. That's J.D. McKissick that's going and getting those points from the reception standpoint. So give me Drake and AJ Green there, Kales. I'm not feeling good about Antonio Gibson. Sadly. Of course, I'm one of the biggest Antonio Gibson supporters in the industry. But let's face it, he's been outside the top 30 pretty much every week since week 5 from a scoring standpoint. And you just can't trust him right now. And then matchup alone is just one to steer away from. So definitely going to be one that we want to shy away from. So definitely want to steer clear there. Like I said, I think AJ Green will be the way to go through there. So, and then of course our guys, they're RotoBallers. Leave your questions. Obviously, we want all your questions and comments, but hot takes, bring them in here. Let us hear them. What's your bold outlook for Week 10? We would love to hear those in this video as well here on the Woo Fantasy Game Day Live Week 10 edition. So shoot them our way. So, Saban's burner, we're getting heaters already today. Yes, we are, Saban. We're definitely getting those. Mike Wright coming in here wanting to know Elijah Moore or Tyler Johnson PPR flex. Boy, did we get some fanning to the flames that was Tyler Johnson just yesterday when it seems like Chris Godwin was going to give it a go and play in this game, because just a couple of days ago it seems like Tyler Johnson was going to be the starting wide receiver 2 for those Buccaneers today. So now you're looking at two guys that are going to be probably in similar modes here. They're going to be considered their wide receiver 3 for their respective teams in these matchups. Both are looking at positive matchups today too. So from that perspective, let me look at who's going to be throwing the ball to these prospective wide receivers. So you're looking at Mike White throwing to Elijah Moore, who, let's be honest, is not seeing the snaps here that we really need to see from Elijah Moore to this point in the season. He's been one of the better wide receivers out of this rookie class in terms of beating single man coverage. He's getting open at a tremendous rate. We're just not seeing the utilization for Elijah Moore yet. And I think that's creeping up each week. Corey Davis coming back for the Jets today, I think helps Elijah Moore to a degree, because now you're really going to put Elijah Moore in nothing but single coverage in that matchup. But when it comes down to who I'd rather start, who's more of the kind of swing for the fences play today, I think that's going to be Tyler Johnson. Yes, Godwin being in does affect that potential that we were looking at just 2 days ago. But I do like Tyler Johnson from an upside standpoint. I think Godwin will be limited to a degree, and we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks, Tyler Johnson's started to get more and more involved in this offense. So for me, I think that's something that I'm kind of really still leaning more towards that with Tyler Johnson. Yeah, he was targeted 6 times, 5 catches, 65 yards last week in a decent matchup with the New Orleans Saints as far as their last game in Week 8. And then this week, of course, playing the Washington secondary that has been really atrocious for the better part of the 2021 season. So I think there's going to be a situation here where Brady, coming off a loss, is really going to probably put the foot to the floor when it comes to this passing attack. And I think Tyler Johnson probably has a better shot at getting in the end zone at the end of the day over Elijah Moore. So gut call is, I think Tyler Johnson's the play here, Mike. So that's what we're going to go with today. And next up in the docket, got Garrett W. Popping in wanting to know Matt Ryan or Jalen Hurts. Again, my how mighty have fallen with Jalen Hurts, who was a perennial week after week top 5 option at the quarterback spot just a couple weeks ago. When now, since Miles Sanders has went down, we've seen this offense completely go to a ground-oriented offense. Rarely do they get the ball into the air. I think we've seen Jalen Hurts has only thrown the ball 31 times combined over the last 2 games. Not optimal for fantasy production. Whereas Matt Ryan, he's been a sneaky QB1 option over the course of the last 2 to 3 games. Going into Dallas and what's perceived to be a high-scoring affair, back and forth, possible scoring affair. We saw Denver come in there and just shock the world last week and beat the brakes off of the Cowboys. I think Matt Ryan and that passing attack can do just the same. Cordell Patterson's been great for fantasy owners that were lucky enough to pick him up early in the season. Has been above 16 fantasy points in 6 out of the last 7 games. I think you're going to see similar situation with Matt Ryan and that passing attack today. So, Garrett, give me Matt Ryan. That's who we're going to play today. I think he's the safer option over Jalen Hurts for sure. Pete jumping back in. I think that was the question you've already asked. So, yes, Lawrence, then White. So that's what we're going to there. And got one here from Jozzles wanting to know Pat Freiermuth or Noah Fant. Just like I was speaking about just a few minutes ago with Freiermuth or Dawson Knox. I think there's a little bit of a ding, a little bit of a hit with Pat Freiermuth and Mason Rudolph today, because I'm not so sure that rapport is going to be there. I think at the end of the day, he's going to have a decent game, but as opposed to Noah Fant and what Noah Fant can do in that matchup, at home against Philadelphia, where the Eagles are really good about limiting outside receivers, but it does open up the middle of the field for some tight end production. So I'm liking Fant a little bit more today, especially over Freiermuth. I think he's going to be the guy you're going to start. Fant for the most part is a week in, week out, plug and play, set and forget type of play at the tight end spot. He may not get into the end zone consistently enough, but he gives you a solid floor from production standpoint at that position. So I'm going to go with Fant there, Jozzles, and that's what we're going to play today over Freiermuth. Which I figured we were going to see a lot more questions about Freiermuth in this Steelers offense. Of course, after the news with Roethlisberger getting deactivated with the COVID designation in this game today. So, speaking of, that's what we're looking at here today. We got morning from Belge wanting to know Pittman or Deontay Johnson in a half-point PPR. And then looking at Mark Ingram, James Robinson, or Elijah Mitchell, full-point PPR. I've got Pittman as a guy that's a continuous top 10 option at the wide receiver position right now. Looking at the Jaguars secondary, I think their numbers have been a little bit deceiving to date from a secondary standpoint. But if you really kind of dive deeply into the numbers, I think they're a bottom 7 unit in points allowed to outside receivers. So that situation alone is really going to put me more on Michael Pittman today. I think that Wentz-Pittman stack in DFS today is going to be one that could really be vital and make some money out there. So if you're looking at filling in some last-minute DFS lineups, I think a Wentz-Pittman stack in DFS today is really a way to go. I was able to actually put together a lineup with Jonathan Taylor and Dalvin Cook with that Wentz and Michael Pittman stack. And that's even with including Mike Evans, who I'm expecting to have a big day today too. So I'm liking Wentz and Pittman a lot today there, Bale. So we're playing Pittman for sure. Out of your running backs there, I still like Elijah Mitchell. That we've seen that Michael Hasty's going to be out for this game, but then outside of that, we've got Jeff Wilson was activated last week, but didn't get any snaps, and Trey Sermon has just been the forgotten man in that backfield for the 49ers that has just been in the Shanahan doghouse for the most part of the 2021 season. So for me, even though that matchup is against the Los Angeles Rams on Monday night, I still like Elijah Mitchell from a workload standpoint a little bit more. I think he's going to catch a few passes in that game, and it's really going to kind of help bring that value up that he might be lacking from a rushing standpoint. I've got him just slightly ahead of Mark Ingram in my final rankings as things stand right now. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with Pittman and Mitchell there for your lineup there. Gary Santos wanting to know Ayuk Javonte Williams or Goddard at flex today. I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to go with Javonte Williams there as your flex play today. I know Ayuk's been the guy a lot of people have been excited about, looking a little bit better last week, got it in the end zone, but of course he's been playing and getting the benefit of Deebo Samuel being out there kind of on a decoy type of format. So I think you're going to see Ayuk probably come back down a little bit more this week, whereas Javonte Williams, I think you're looking at a situation where that Broncos backfield is going to be primed for a big day today against the Philadelphia Eagles. It's been one of the bottom 5 to 6 in terms of fantasy points allowed to opposing running backs on the season. Just not been too good as for, especially over the course of the last month. I think they've been one of the worst in the league in points allowed. So it should breed for a good game from both Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Of course, it's mind-numbing with that split between those two running backs, but if you really dive down into the deep analytics with Javonte Williams, he's one of the best running backs in the league. From an avoided tackle standpoint, he's tied for the league lead in avoided tackles. And that's only on 95 attempts with 35 avoided tackles. It's amazing what this kid has been doing up until this point on a limited standpoint. So just imagine if something were to happen where Javonte Williams was getting the full workload with the Broncos backfield. This guy, you're looking at easily top 10 running back the rest of the way if he were to be unleashed by the Broncos there. But as for today, yeah, like I said, Gary, I think I like him a little bit more than your other options there. Goddard, very, very difficult matchup on the road against the Broncos defense. So that's where I'm going there, Gary. Plug in Javonte Williams, lock him and load him today. Alexander Rossi wanting to know, he's got Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, or Mike Williams. He needs to start one half-point PPR. Man, that is a good question. I think I'm leaning away from Chris Godwin, obviously with him being limited a little bit today. But from your point of view, I've got Deebo Samuel at wide receiver 11. I've got wide receiver 13, Mike Williams this week. They are very close. Mike Williams facing a beat-up Minnesota Vikings secondary. I think we're going to see a bounce-back game from Mike Williams today. But give me Deebo Samuel. Yes, he may be lined up against Jalen Ramsey for a good portion of that game Monday night. But I think now that he's finally gotten fully healthy, he's off the injury designation for this game. I think we're going to see Deebo Samuel kind of get back to a steady dose of production as the 49ers wide receiver 1 in this game. So should be a nice game on Monday night from a scoring standpoint, from a fantasy production standpoint. So I like Deebo Samuel there just a little bit more than Mike Williams there today. I think from a competing for target situation, I think Deebo Samuel is going to be the guy that's getting the top tier targets from that, whereas Mike Williams is competing with Keenan Allen from a target standpoint today. So that's where I'm going to go with Alexander. We're going to go with Deebo Samuel. And Matt Farino wanting to know Noah Fant or Dallas Goedert. Kind of diving back into what I just answered just a few minutes ago. I'm not expecting a good game from Dallas Goedert today. A very, very difficult matchup. And we've seen over the course of the last couple of games, passing attempts and opportunities from the Philadelphia Eagles have really gone down drastically over the last couple of weeks. Give me Noah Fant there. I think he has the better chance of getting in the end zone between those two. And obviously, at the end of the day, that's what we want as fantasy managers. We want the guy that's going to get in the end zone. So 11:30, we are halfway through the show, getting ready for kickoff here at noon Central Time here in Tennessee, where I'm at. So let's bring those questions in. Let's finish strong with this show. Like I said, like and share here on the RotoBaller YouTube page. Give us all your comments. Send them in hot and heavy. We want to know, who's a player that you're looking at today that's going to exceed value. Who's the guy that you think is going to break the slate today? Who's the guy that you've got your eye on from a fantasy standpoint that you're expecting big things from in week 10? Leave those comments for us here and let us know what's on your mind there today. And let's jump back into our questions here. And Perry is wanting to know, start Pitts, Goddard. We're going to start with Pitts. Just mentioned Goddard, I'm not feeling this week. I don't expect to see a big game from him, but Pitts as the main pass catching option for the Atlanta Falcons on the road in Dallas in a high scoring affair, I think is your preferred option to go with there. And then at flex, we're looking at DJ Moore, Cole Beasley, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I'm not going to go with Goddard in the flex there either. So really for me, what it kind of boils down to is DJ Moore or Cole Beasley. And what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks is that Beasley's kind of really he's kind of taken a little bit of a step back, and the targets have been there. 8 catches for 33 just a week ago in that game against Jacksonville. But prior to that, 10 catch, 110 yard game. That was the week where I was expecting a big week from him in that matchup against Miami. Now going on the road, facing the New York Jets here in week 10. I think the targets are still going to be there from that target standpoint. Probably looking at anywhere from 9 to 11 in this ball game today. But from a yardage standpoint, probably going to be seeing him hover around that 50 to 60 yardage point. But I'm not expecting him to get into the end zone today, which that's the caveat. That's what we're looking at here. Whereas DJ Moore on the road against the Arizona Cardinals, they're bringing in new quarterback. It's not going to be Cam Newton. PJ Walker is going to be your starter for the Carolina Panthers. Of course, Cam Newton. There's a lot of talk this morning that the Panthers might put in Cam Newton in certain situations, certain packages. But I'll be interested to see DJ Moore with PJ Walker. I think there was a couple games last year with PJ Walker under center where DJ Moore really did seem to thrive from a production standpoint. Got quite a bit of targets, saw quite a bit of receptions with PJ Walker there. That'll be something to keep an eye on today. So I like Moore a little bit over Beasley here, Perry, especially from an upside standpoint of getting into the end zone. Give me Moore here. I think he's going to be the preferred play out of these there. So, and getting back into the questions. Which loving the interaction today, guys. I'm seeing some new names, some new faces here into the show there. Greatly appreciate that. Of course, flying solo today, like I mentioned. So we're trying to get to as many of these questions as possible prior to kickoff. So keep them coming in. We'll get to as many as I can prior to kickoff. But Woody the Badger's needing to know. He's wanting to pick two between Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, or Darrell Henderson in a PPR format. For me, it's close. I do like Deontay Johnson. I said I do like Deontay from a standpoint with Rudolph in that matchup. I don't think things change too much for Deontay. I think he's still going to see those steady dose of targets in that matchup. So for me, it's going to come down to Henderson and Amari Cooper. And when we're looking at from a flex position standpoint, I do like to favor the running back just a little bit more. Henderson, we've seen his usage come down over the course of the last 2 to 3 games. His rushing attempts are coming down. The catches are coming down just a little bit. So we're seeing a little bit of that Rams offense kind of change somewhat as we're getting Sony Michel a little bit more involved in that backfield. So for me, I think that's probably where I'm going to give more of the credence to Amari Cooper. I think that bad offensive performance for the Cowboys last week, I think is going to push them more into a show it type of a game plan today. And so for me, I like Amari Cooper a little bit more than Darrell Henderson. I think there's just a little bit more of a chance to get into the end zone there for me, is how I'm viewing that. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to leave Darrell Henderson on the bench this week. And then Bo Ryan wanting to know Chris Godwin or Terry McLaurin. Whew, that is a good one because Terry McLaurin, odds are we're looking at a situation where He's playing at home against the Tampa Bay secondary, which let's be honest, that's been the way to beat that team so far throughout this season. You can't beat them by running the ball. Whereas opposed to a healthy Chris Godwin, I would easily say is the play here over Terry McLaurin. But that's just not the case as we head into Week 10 action here. Chris Godwin banged up with the foot injury. I think it's going to limit him a little bit today. So from a snap share percentage, I think we're not going to see what we're normally typically seeing from Chris Godwin in that matchup today. Whereas I think Terry McLaurin is going to be the focal point of the Redskins offense today in an attempt to keep up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. So, Bo, go with Terry McLaurin today. I think he's going to give you a little bit more upside over Chris Godwin in a limited role here. So that's what we're looking at there. So just Belge wanting to know Pittman or Deontay Johnson, half-point PPO. No, well, I think we jumped into his question just prior. This one's a duplicate question. So we've hit that one already. Just to come down a little bit further down the line here, we do have some duplicate questions in here. So Acrazia wanting to know Deebo Samuel, Deontay Johnson, or D'Ernest Johnson. I'm assuming this is from a PPR standpoint. This is a flex play that we're looking at. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, a lot of people are going to be heavy on D'Ernest Johnson today. He's going to be the guy that's going to get most of the work for the Browns offense. This is a tough question. But like I mentioned, now from a flex plays perspective, most often than not, I'm going to lean towards the running back. As much as I do like Deebo and Deontay both to have some solid outputs this week, I think D'Ernest offers a little bit more upside. He's going to get all the rushing work in that backfield from a runs perspective, but he's going to be featured as a pass catcher this week too. Because let's be honest, Nick Chubb's not there. But another vital piece of this backfield, Demetric Felton, is also out with COVID. So this running game is going to go strictly through D'Ernest Johnson today. Going to get all the workload from a pass catching perspective and the run game. So as much as I do like your other options there, it's hard to bench those guys. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with D'Ernest. From a sheer standpoint of just the workload that we're expected to see him have in that game today. So, Acrazia, let's go D'Ernest Johnson there in your situation. Joe B, my guy coming in here, wanting to know flex, looking at Marquez Callaway or Laviska PPR situation. Man. Whew. And he said, anyone else, Kamara screwed me. Yeah, he screwed a lot of people. I've got a couple of leagues where I've had to pull him out of lineup too. So trust me, I'm feeling your pain there, Joe. But from a standpoint from your question here, Laviska, he's kind of in that boat now at this point where it's just you got to show me. I'm not really relying on him in my lineups at all until I really kind of see him prove something to me in that offense. I mean, you're seeing that they're getting a steady dose of targets to Jamal Agnew over Laviska Shenault, which is very disconcerting from a fantasy standpoint that he's kind of losing snaps to a Jamal Agnew. So by process of elimination, Joe, we're going to go with Marquez Callaway. He did find the end zone last week. On the road in Tennessee today, there's going to be hope that he can do that yet again. Whereas I do like, from a sneaky perspective, I think Deontay Harris is a guy to watch out for in that game today. He's 13 targets in each combined between the last two games. I think he's trending in the right direction. Harris is actually a guy I like in that matchup today. So, Joe, we're going to go with Callaway there. Hopefully, homecoming as such, former Tennessee Volunteer, maybe looking to show off for his former state school and have a good game there for the New Orleans Saints is what I'm expecting there today. So, and then pumping back into Joe saying, by the way, he's in first place now, 6-3. Congrats to you, sir. Glad we could help as always and getting your lineup set and on the Woo Fantasy Game Day live show each week. keep them coming. We're here to help you, man. Whale wanting to know Pittman, Godwin, Dearness Johnson needing to pick 2. I think we're going to leave Godwin on the bench there, Whale. From the limited standpoint, kind of like what I've been saying here over the course of the show so far. I like Pittman today as a top 10 option, and Dearness Johnson's kind of a fringe RB1 for me in that game today. So we're going to leave Godwin on the bench there in your situation there. So Pittman, Dearness Johnson, Whale. That's who you're going to want to play in your matchup today. Michael wanting to know Godwin or Van Jefferson. So now we're seeing a situation where we're kind of diving a little bit further down the line here. Van Jefferson, of course, after his situation with Robert Woods and Odell Beckham, there's been a lot of conjecture out there as where Van Jefferson really stands. Beckham signs with the Rams, and then we were immediately feeling, oh, crap, Van Jefferson's pretty much an afterthought at this point. Robert Woods tears an ACL, done for the year. Van Jefferson back into the conversation, which, you have to figure that Van Jefferson, knowing the offense as opposed to Odell Beckham just there for a few days, is probably going to get a little bit more run this week and be on the field for a higher snap percentage over Beckham this week. So I think that's good for Van Jefferson. But from an upside standpoint, that matchup alone, I think I'm going to lean towards Godwin. Even if he's limited, I think you're looking at a situation where Godwin limited, his floor is probably what we're looking at Van Jefferson can do in that matchup on Monday night. So for me, I'm going to go with Godwin, even in a limited situation, and going to hope that he can find the end zone in that game against the Washington football team. So I like Godwin a little bit more than Van Jefferson. So, Michael, that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with Godwin there. And staying on the Van Jefferson narrative, Javonte Williams, Van Jefferson, or J.D. McKissic, half-point PPR. I'm going to go with Javonte Williams here. Just previously mentioned, such a great matchup there today for the Broncos backfield against the Philadelphia Eagles. Van Jefferson, there's a little bit of confusion as to what we're expecting from the Rams pass-catching trio now heading into that game on Monday night. And then J.D. McKissic, he's a guy that there's matchups where you really feel like you want to get him in the lineup, and that's today against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, football team is going to be trailing, and there's going to be situations where McKissic's going to be on the field in those hurry-up 2-minute situations, catching passes out of the backfield. So there's a chance from an upside perspective that he can give you that 6 to 7 catch type of a game today. But for me, I think Javonte Williams is in a situation where, you saw last week get 17 rushes against the Cowboys, 100 yards, his first 100-yard rushing game as a pro. I think he kind of compounds on that with another solid performance today. And I think he gets in the end zone today in that matchup against the Eagles. I think we're going to see a very ground-oriented attack from the Broncos today in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So Munir, give me Javonte Williams there in that situation. And then your secondary question, Higbee or Freiermuth? That is actually a close call between those two. Like we've mentioned earlier in the show, Freiermuth, I think, takes a little bit of a ding in his matchup today. Whereas, we've seen Higbee over the course of the last few games, 10 targets last week, 5 receptions, 51 yards. But the week prior to that, just 3 targets, 3 receptions. He's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type of a guy. Whereas now you're going to be looking at possibly a more low-scoring type of a game, divisional game between the Rams and the 49ers. I like Freiermuth I think, a little bit more. I've actually got him 1 spot ahead in my rankings over Higbee, and that is factoring in the situation with Rudolph and Big Ben. So give me Freiermuth there. Give me the hotter player as opposed to Higbee. Higbee's just not really finding that steady dose of getting in the end zone. So that's what we want to do there. We want to go with Freiermuth and hope that he continues the strong play, even with the Mason Rudolph sudden change at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's what we want to do there. So 15-minute mark there, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 11:45 Central Time. We got 15 minutes prior to kickoff. We do have several questions still in the queue here, so let me try to do rapid fire for this last 15 minutes here, and get to these final questions and get everyone set up and ready to go for Week 10 action here. So if you do have those final questions and you don't want to risk getting them in at the last minute, send them in now at the RotoBaller YouTube page here, Roto Superstar Twitter account. Let's get those last questions in here. Let me do more of kind of a rapid fire segment here for the last few minutes, and let's try to get to those last few questions for you guys. And then, of course, as always, hit that like button here on the RotoBaller YouTube page. Like this show. Let them know how you feel with Roto Superstar here in the Woo Fantasy Game Day Live show. Let us know. Let RotoBaller know how you feel about this weekly show, setting your lineups and doing what we can do to help you get those wins here in 2021 fantasy. So greatly would appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen, if you could do that for us here. So Daniel Warrior coming in, Stevenson or Bolden, full point PPR. We're going to go with Stevenson there in your situation. Probably going to be a little bit of a frustrating day from a standpoint of who's going to be the main guy in that backfield. For me, give me Stevenson a little bit more. Goddard or Odell, full point PPR flex spot. Ooh, gosh. Whew. That is a tough one. That for me is an absolute coin flip. Like I've mentioned a few times before, heading into this question, I don't like Goddard here. So give me the lesser of two evils. Odell Beckham, probably a little bit more of a higher upside as far as getting into the end zone. So let me go Odell there. I don't like either of those two options here in Week 10, but we're going to go with the lesser of two evils there. Half point PPR, Mark Ingram, Deontay Johnson. That is a closer situation here between those two. I'm going to lean more towards the running backs here in the flex spot. So give me Mark Ingram in that matchup. I think he's just probably going to barely outscore Deontay Johnson in today's game. So Deontay Johnson on the wayside, Mark Ingram there for Maximus in his matchup. Dawson Knox here for Ed Seat 1. Dawson Knox for Van Jefferson, full point PPR. Let's go Dawson Knox there, Ed. Let's get him into that lineup over Van Jefferson for the, like I said, obvious reasons. We don't know how that pass catching group outside of Cooper Kupp between Beckham, Higbee, Van Jefferson, how that's really going to shake out this week in that game. So I like Dawson Knox just a little bit more. Spanky Dog. I like that name. That's a good one. Who would you play as your second wide receiver? Amari Cooper and Michael Pittman. Pittman all day today there, Spanky Dog. Like I said, I think he's kind of a guy that you can look at as a top 10 option at the wide receiver position almost week in, week out at this point. So we're going to go with Pittman there. And Abraham Pena wanting to know Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones. Kind of a question I had earlier on here on the show. I'm not really feeling either one of them, but give me Trevor Lawrence, the better option between those two. So Abraham, we're going to go Trevor Lawrence today here in Week 10. Matt Clark wanting to know Dawson Knox or James Washington. I like Dawson Knox there. James Washington is your absolute dart throw today. There's, I mentioned it at the top of the show. Ben Roethlisberger over the course of the last couple of years, his yards per attempt has been 6.6. Going to Mason Rudolph, whose YPA is 6.5. You're looking at the exact same game plan. There's not really going to be as many shots down the field, and that's what James Washington excels at, is those shots down the field. So it's really a boomer bust play for James Washington, where I like Dawson Knox to be more of a steady production type of a day from him coming back from the injury. So Joe B, only 4 likes, but 20 people. Come on, guys. Yeah, I agree, Joe. Let's get more likes in here. We gotta get those thumbs up here. If I'm answering those questions for you, help a guy out. Throw those thumbs up in here for us here as we're helping you out and getting those lineups situated for Week 10 action, guys. Let's see. Popping in here. Love this. We got a trade situation. Wanting to know prior to kickoff. He's wanting to rate the trade. He traded away Cook, Hollywood, Judy, and received Eckler, Godwin for the fantasy playoffs. He also has Taylor, Barkley, Mixon, Evans, Deontay Johnson, and Diggs. I mean, honestly, I think that's kind of a flat deal for you based on what you gave up. I know there's some, a lot of worry from a lot of the Dalvin Cook owners, with the situation going on outside of football currently right now. But for me, I think you might have gave up just a little bit too much. I think you're getting back the lesser running back between Eckler and Cook. You're getting the better receiver back in that deal over Hollywood and Judy. But I think Judy is on the verge of a big second half as we get into things here in the second half of the season. So as far as rating your trade, I think you gave up just a hair too much in that deal. But I get it. We're getting into the situation this time of year where you're really wanting to set your starting lineup for that fantasy playoff push. You don't really want to have those questions week in and week out, as opposed to, where you don't know who you want to play week in and week out. Let's get into these final questions as we finish things up here today. LKB Pythons wanting to know Zach Moss, Mark Ingram. Pythons, we're going to go with Ingram there. That's for sure. Shlomo wanting to know flex position. Melvin Gordon, Jarvis Landry, Pat Fryermuth, full point PPR. Previously mentioned, I like the Broncos running backs today, so give me Melvin Gordon. I think he continues the strong play today in a plus matchup for that Broncos running back situation. TJ Hawkinson or Dawson Knox for JC Sweet. We're going to go with TJ Hawkinson today. I think he continues his strong play as well. See, and kind of ciphering through some of these questions here. You gotta love a defensive question coming in here at the end. Panthers D or Steelers D? I think we're overthinking the situation here with the Panthers D on the road against Arizona. I think Colt McCoy is a better quarterback than Jared Goff, given the weapons that he has around him. No, give me the Steelers D and say no to the Panthers D today. How you like that one there? See. Yeah. And friend of the show here, good old Matt here said, obviously, yes, we talked off the show last night. He's on the fence with Emmanuel Sanders or Tyler Johnson, leaning Sanders barely right now. I think so, with a lot of the situations that, the beat reports that we've heard kind of this morning with Godwin coming back in the lineup. I think I agree with you now on that situation. I think I'm kind of leaning more towards Sanders over Tyler Johnson, just by a smidge there, Matt. So no problem there. Capel wanting to know Zeke, Darrell Henderson, Terry McLaurin, Adam Thielen. Can you please suggest a flex between Judy and Landry? So I'm assuming you need, out of the first four that we mentioned, Zeke, Darrell, Terry, Thielen. I'm assuming you need one out of that group. If so, I'm going to go with Zeke. Between those options there, that's going to be the one I would go with. And then can you suggest a flex between Judy or Landry? Give me Jerry Judy today. We're seeing a little bit of uptick in usage and utilization. His targets are coming up ever so slightly. He's becoming the player over Cortland Sutton in that receiving rotation. So yes, give me Jerry Judy there. And then Sean needing to know full point PPR bench one of Stevenson, Pollard, Dillon. I think we're going to bench Pollard there. I think we're seeing a little bit of snow coming into the forecast for Green Bay. And I think we're going to see kind of one of those situations where they're going to run the ball a little bit. Yes, Rodgers is back. Boom. So that's what we're going to go with. We're going to bench Pollard. And speaking of Rodgers or Wentz, standard league, I'm going to go with Rodgers. Even though I do like Wentz, I think Rodgers coming back, chip on his shoulder with all the stuff that's going on outside of football. Rodgers, even with a little bit of snow in the forecast, I think good to go there. Slim needing to do Johnny's out. Start Fant or Fryermuth over Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, I agree, is kind of a good reach for in DFS, but give me Fant ever so slightly over Hunter Henry now with Jonnu out. And A Money wanting to know Ayuk, Corey Davis, Christian Kirk, lost D-Hot. I think we're going to go with Christian Kirk there. Steady performance from him. I like him just a little bit more over Ayuk this week. Corey Davis, I'm just not feeling against Tre'Davious White in that matchup there. So, see, Adam Alvarez, like I said, we're doing flash speed for these last few questions here. Flex play, Ramondre Stevenson, Jerry Jeudy, AJ Dillon, Van Jefferson. Give me Jerry Jeudy just slightly over Ramondre Stevenson. Ayuk or Kirk for Russell. Just answered that just a second ago with another question. I like Kirk just a little bit over Brandon Ayuk today. Is Ingram cool in GPP? He's a little bit high. He's going to be a little bit high owned. So I think that chalk is there on Ingram today. So if you're looking at it from a GPP perspective, I think you want to pivot a little bit more away from him from that, from a price point perspective. You can kind of go and lean more towards like a Javonte Williams. Like I mentioned, I think is going to have a good game today and avoid the ownership that you're going to see that Ingram's going to have in DFS today. Doug, Pollard or Collins? Oof. Pollard. Not loving either one of the options, and then also needing to know Jeudy or Van Jefferson. Let me go Jeudy there. So we're going there with that one as well. Alfonso needing to know Collins, Mike Davis, Ayuk. Flex 16 half point PPR. Good Lord. I'm going to go with Ayuk there over your options there, Alfonso. So, see, Carl needing to know Knox, Fryermuth. We're going to go with Knox there. Tyler needing to know Gordon or Dearness Johnson. I got Dearness Johnson a smidge over Melvin Gordon there, Tyler. So we want to go with Deontay there. Ben Stevenson or Bolden. Stevenson a little bit over that. Carl also need to know Ramondre, Devontae Smith. Bolden. I'm going to lean more towards Ramondre here, Carl. It's a standard situation. I think he has a better shot at getting in the end zone. Ingram or Javonte. We're going to go Ingram in season-long leagues. Capel, Zeke, Darrell, Terry Thielen. That just answered that one just a minute ago. Fant or Pat? We're going to go with Fant. Fant or Fryermuth? We're going to go Fant still. Marvin Jones, Tim Patrick. We're going to go Marvin Jones, but not by much there. PD again, Fant, we're going. Emmanuel Sanders, Jarvis at flex. Let me get Jarvis on that one. I think the usage is going to be a little bit heavier there out. Z, we already answered that one as well. Getting in these last few, Jamal Agnew or LaVisca. Jamal Agnew, sadly enough, is what we're going to go with there. AJ Green or Hines. Let me go Naheem Hines in that situation with Marlon Mack being declared out today. Start 2 for Daniel O here. Lamb, Allen, or Pittman. We're going to go Pittman and Lamb here for you there, Daniel. Odell Beckham or Javonte. We're going to go Javonte there. Bolden, Green, Gibson. Gosh. I'm going to go AJ Green there. Bold, not feeling it great, but that's what we're going to go with there. And last couple of questions here. Devontae Smith, Brandon Ayuk. We want to go with Ayuk there, tied. And then Danon, Terry, Connor, or OBJ. Give me James Conner there. Jerry or Landry. We want to go Jerry Jeudy. And gosh, Tyler, Gallup or Beasley. Give me Beasley there, Tyler. And man, you guys have overloaded the show this week. I love it. Zach, Matt Ryan, Kirk, or Kyler. Kyler, I'm not expecting to play, so we're going to go with Matt Ryan there for Zach. And man, Finn wanting to know Swift or Michelle or Mitchell, I'm assuming there. I'm actually going to go with Elijah Mitchell there. So appreciate it, guys. That is the last of what we've got here in the queue. I think there's a couple of questions or so that we did miss. We're right here at 12 o'clock. Like I mentioned, greatly appreciate the interaction today. We might have to start the show just a hair a bit earlier next week. Probably will do that so we can kind of get into a few more questions, but I do greatly appreciate it. We're at kickoff time now. So ladies and gentlemen, good luck to you today and get those wins. And we will see you again on another episode of Woo Fantasy. Woo!